This red here shows what I was using to help reevaluate and reflect again on the experience for Activity 2. I'm now going to move on to Activity 3, where I've just highlighted a couple of things as well within this sort of reflection process to talk about the blog activity. Well, the blog activity went very well, considering that there were time constraints by that point in the lesson, with the slowness of moving through Activity 2. It was just as well that I had agreed with the examiner that we upload the notes beforehand. I think I'll talk to you about that, Faye, because it meant there was no slowness of setting it up, that the students could go directly to the Learn page. I put the notes on the thing on their Learn page so that they already knew where to go and just had to click the link and it was directly into the blog. So all of that was very important for blended application within a short period of time, that it's all set up for them to go, and all they needed to do was go there and start commenting on what they were seeing. So I had quite positive feelings about that, because there wasn't any technical hiccups like the last activity in terms of stopping and starting the video, assisting them to get onto the mind map and then running out of time. This one went a lot more smoothly. The students are more used to blogs anyway and social environments, so it was really no problem for them to go there and flick through and start to make comments. So I'd say in terms of ease of blended application, Activity 1 and 3 were the quickest under time pressures, so long as you had set it all up. So I've got here written here, given session time, I could have had something like 3 comment prompts instead of 9 prompt questions, because I'd given them this blog comments handout to them, because in the literature it had said that you couldn't expect that they'd actually know what to comment on. So I thought, okay, well, I need to give them a few things to jolt what they could comment on. I was expecting I'd set up the previous activity where they go through mind mapping styles and headings and main headings. I had to do it in practice. That through that they would have learnt some expert knowledge that they could comment on within this next activity. And I touched on the fact that anything you learnt in the previous videos, you could make a comment on that, or here were some extra questions you might like to comment on or help you to comment on. However, because the time limit, and I think the level of students, it probably would have been better to give them maybe 3 questions to simplify it, and then they were looking for those 3 initially, especially when training at the beginning of a blended learning project, to get them to get in the habit of doing this kind of things initially. You can't just give them, say, go for it and know how to apply things really quickly. So I think the negative feeling was, I suppose, that when I handed out the sheet, my feelings, oh no, there's too many questions on the sheet. So that's what I was feeling, but really it's not a problem having a sheet. That was the right thing to do. It was just there were too many questions on that sheet. So I'm not going to use that feeling as an instruction to how I can apply in the future, to use the same sort of instructions but use a more simplified version in order to train the students how to do this kind of thing. Without the sheet, they would have probably had nothing to comment on and could have been way too unguided. So it's following the literature, but just learning and practice, looking at the data as this model of reflection tells me to do. What I saw in my own experience is that initially, when you're doing a blended learning kind of online blog, give them some short questions to look for first. Then if you're going to do it and you've got them again, see them again the next time, you might be able to expand the number of questions they look for. And so you're training and getting them used to doing it. On the positive side, I thought we're running out of time. I thought maybe they weren't learning anything in particular through this experience, and I had that dreadful feeling, were they actually reflecting at all? Had the last 2 Activities worked to some extent. I would have liked to have gone through the mind mapping thing a lot more, and my perfectionist side of me came out in how I was internally feeling. So, I mean, these feelings are data, according to the model that I've analysed here. It's just part of my data. But on the positive side, I saw that they were going through and they were making some really good, I mean, there wasn't huge comments here, but I saw that they had been learning. When I see that there has been learning, it makes me feel good. That they're going away with something tangible and specific that they could apply themselves. When I saw that there's subheadings with bullet points, I know that that's a crucial aspect of note taking. So it's very and it was easy to find the key information from the class for follow-up study. Again, a lot of people were finding main headings, subheadings, and that was a part of what they were doing with that mind mapping activity that I'd given them, and going through the styles and that were in that expert video. Some were pointing on what kind of actual style that they were using, and the outline method as opposed to the mind mapping method. And some had noted colour and letters to organise notes better. So also this one had said that the notes have been written to help them to understand afterwards what the problem in that lecture was. So it was written to help understanding. So there was some I was surprised that any comments were coming out there. I think they're just used to this environment and comfortable with it. Plus they had some expert knowledge to come out of the last activity. If I'd gone straight to this activity, they wouldn't have had anything to comment on. So by leading up to it with the expert knowledge, where they had to look at and analyse different styles, do the mind map activity, that would have helped as much as the little guide I'd given them in terms of questioning. But looking back at that guide, it does say, do these use outline, mind map, Cornell method? So some of them were actually using a little bit of their guide. And the fourth one are the headings and subheadings. And some was their colour. So some of them probably were referring to this and just skimming down to see what they could note upon, and finding the easiest one that they'd remembered from the last activity as a reinforcing thing. So I was really quite happy with that, and they seem to be happy doing this activity, all of them, which is a really positive thing, and I can bolster the idea of a positive feeling I was getting from that this kind of thing does work. This kind of forum really is quite effective with first year students. They like the environment, they're comfortable with it. If you're going to generate reflection, it's a really good way to do it, and it's quite a lot of fun, to be honest. I would like to do it myself, have pictures in there and make comments on it. And I think they were engaging. It was really engaging because they were seeing notes from other people within their class. I think that was particularly a powerful way to get them to reflect on their own note-taking when comparing to someone else's notes. And I used the best exemplars and really honed in that these were the excellent exemplars to make the people that I was using feel really good, but also that these guys could learn from them. So how do I reevaluate that? Well, I was sort of associating what knowledge I already know. How can I associate this new with what knowledge I already know? Very difficult. A lot of it was quite new learning for me. I think that I'd never done a blog activity like this before in practice, so that was quite new. I knew it. The older part of me knows that in teaching that using peer comparison is a very powerful method of creating reflection from a different angle in students. I knew that, but I hadn't applied that to a blog environment, and it's really quite a new thing for me to try to generate peer evaluation anyway. So to see it happen in practice, I can bolster the fact that and reinforce for myself that that's valid, because this is real life experiential data according to the model, and I need to reinforce that the data actually shows some learning going on here. Given the short period of time that they had beforehand, and that it should have been longer beforehand with the previous activity, if they'd had longer, these comments could have been even better than was here. So in terms of appropriation into my own practice, I think that I can make this my own. I know that these forums do work very powerfully to create reflection, and I do know that using class evaluation of classes is a really powerful way to help students to see from a different angle in terms of creating a disorientating dilemma. Coming back now to my professional goals, I think that I've just been talking about the experience of applying these strategies in an online environment. There's no doubt that I learned some real skill in that, and using this blog and seeing how it does actually in fact work. It is enjoyed, but you would have to set it up well beforehand, so there was no technical glitches in going in. So it was good to reinforce that all worked for me, and I can apply that to later as something tangible. But it also, in terms of a tool that worked, the tool of using blogs really does work really well to create critical reflection. The use of the guiding, the guideline for questioning prompts, it does work, but it needs to be simplified initially, and leading them up to it with some learning beforehand in a previous activity really does work when applying the blog tool. You wouldn't want to apply the blog tool just right at the beginning of the session, because they've got nothing to comment on. And then allowing them some freedom to also to make comments that you may not expect. And I was really reinforcing that for them, that you don't have to, this is a guide, but you may have other ideas and other things you see that on that sheet that you might want to comment on. So really it was interesting to see that, and was giving me tangible skills about how to do that. And I'm going to go on now to the last activity.